a timely moment to say, can I remind all those in the room to turn your mobile phones off or to silent, please? And those joining us online, please turn off your cameras and microphones so that the meeting isn't disturbed. I'll now introduce those taking part in the committee today. To my left are officers from our legal and democratic teams, and to my right are the planning officers who will present the applications. And on the wings of the table are the councillors who will debate and decide the applications. The format will be as per the published agenda, and a copy of the officer reports can be found on the council website. Each application will be taken in turn. Officers will outline each application, followed by public speaking time. Only members of the public who have registered to speak can make representation, and councillors around the table will then debate and decide on each application. During the debate, there will be a proposer and a seconder for a resolution. Members will vote on the proposal. Only members who have been present throughout the whole application will be able to vote, and the voting options are for, against, abstain and defer. Votes will be counted and the result announced. So that takes us into the main agenda. And first of all, we have item 1, which is apologies for absence. Lee, can you give us our apologies, please?
Right, thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillor Jill Slocum with Councillor Lance Dedrick substituting for her, Councillor Brian Bolt and Councillor Ben Ferguson.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is minutes from the previous meeting. Unfortunately, these aren't available, but they will be for the next meeting. Next, we go to agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Leslie, would you like to give us the brief summary, please, of about why we're declaring? Thanks.
Certainly, Chair. The reason why there is a need to disclose interest is that disclosure promotes integrity, transparency and public confidence, and it aligns with the Nolan principles, and it helps to ensure decisions are made fairly and reduces the risk of legal challenge or complaints against members. So just to quickly recap on the types of interest, we have firstly the disclosable pecuniary interest, or DPIs. These relate to personal financial interests such as employment, trade, profession, business interests, contracts and company associations, and also include investments, trust, land, property and other financial assets. If a councillor has a DPI and no dispensation has been granted by the monitoring officer, they must declare it, must not participate in discussion or voting, and they must leave the room when the item is being considered. Other registrable interests include unpaid directorships, memberships of bodies to which the council has been appointed by authority, membership of organisations exercising public functions, charities, political parties or trade unions. The councillor must declare the interest and generally cannot participate in the discussion or voting, nor remain in the room unless a dispensation has been granted. Certain exemptions apply, such as council-owned companies and parish council memberships. And then there are non-registrable interests. These were formerly known as personal interests. They arise where a matter could affect the well-being or financial position of the councillor, a family member, or a close associate more than the general public. These interests must be declared where relevant. Participation is only restricted if the interest is so significant that it directly affects the councillor or their family, in which case they should withdraw from the matter. There is also the issue of predetermination of bias. Councillors must not take part in decisions where they are biased or have already made up their minds. A planning committee member who has expressed views on an application may still participate if they remain open to persuasion. If they've already decided how they will vote, regardless of the evidence presented, they must declare this, speak if appropriate, then leave and take no part in the vote. So the key message there is the purpose of disclosing interest is to ensure that decisions are made impartially and are seen to be impartial, protecting both the council and the individual councillors from allegations of bias, conflicts of interest or breaches of the code of conduct. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So can I have any declarations of interest, please? Councillor Hendry, Councillor Smedley and then Councillor Philman.
Thank you, Chair. Application number 673 High Street, Burnham-on-Sea. I'm the chairman of Burnham-on-Sea High Sustainability and Hamish Planning Committee have already voted on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smedley.
Regarding the item on Castle Street, I live in Castle Street. I just need to make that declaration known, but I haven't taken any position as regards this development so far.
Thank you. Councillor Filmer.
I'm used to the declaration. I'm a member of the Act Group Training Board who are pleased, but I've taken no part in their comments on any of the applications before us.
Thank you. I also need to declare on item 7, 8 and 9 as a member of Bridgewater Town Council and divisional member for the applications, but I haven't taken part in any discussions. Okay, so that's the declarations of interest. Next is public question time. We have members of the public who have registered to speak. I'll call you to the table in front of us when we are considering the applications. And that takes us straight on to agenda item 5, which is the first planning application, which is Cutters Combe, Enmore Road, Enmore. And Liam, I think you take us through this application, please.
Yes, okay, so this application is for the siting of 5 touring caravan pitches alongside existing 5 touring caravan pitches, which were granted consent back in 2024. The site itself is located within the outside the village of Enmore and was subject to that permission originally. The background to this one is that at the time of the consent being granted, it was implemented, but at the same time, a further 5 caravans pitches were also installed. So the application has been submitted in a retrospective manner. So with regards to the main considerations, we'll be looking at the visual impact of those additional 5 caravans, the highway implications, and the impact on residential amenity, as well as the public right of way. So the site is located here on the site plan there. You can see it's to the south of the property known as Cutters Combe, which is in the same ownership and operates the site. And this was the plan as originally approved. So you have the 5 pitches on either side of a central access road, which was formed off of the new access onto Enmore Road, which provided visibility displays in both directions, and that was granted on a delegated basis 2 years ago. At the time, the applicants then installed a further 5 pitches, which on this site plan you can see have been interspersed between the gaps of the originally consented pitches. So in respect of visual impact, the site itself is considered to be suitable in terms of scale for it to be contained, while also not having a significant impact on the character of the area. Take you through the slide. So these are the photographs from the site visit. You can see that this is the southwest boundary, where the line of the site is located, and on the right hand side you can see some of the touring caravans in situ there. So with regards to the proposal that we have, the retrospective nature of it means that we're looking at the additional 5 pitches alongside those that have already been granted. And from a planning officer point of view, it's not considered as a significant visual impact on the surrounding area, taking into account the existing landscaping along the boundaries of the site, particularly along Enmore Road and the the public right of way. Okay, so this is a view of the approved access. It's set back from the highway and has visibility in both directions along Enmore Road. As a result of the proposal now before you, it's not considered that the additional 5 pitches would result in a significant increase in vehicle movements from the site. And as a product of it being approved last time with highways input, the access itself is considered acceptable in terms of width, design and visibility. The 2 photographs on the right hand side of the screen there just show you the visibility to the near side carriageway edge and along an area of the road which is reduced to a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit. So it is considered that the additional traffic generated would be accommodated within the existing highway network. This is a view taken from the public right of way, both to the east boundary of the site and the northern side of the site. The public right of way runs along the existing vehicle access, which is used by Cutters Combe and 2 other properties. And as you can see, the visual impact from the public right of way The impact on users of that right of way would be minimal, given the existing presence of mature hedgerows which will be retained and are unaffected by the proposal. The photograph on the left shows the view from Cutters-Combe and from the north. Again, the existing landscaping along the boundaries of the site reduces the visual impact of the existing and proposed or retrospectively proposed pitches. So that was a bit of a quick run through of the main issues. The application before us because of an objection from the parish council in this case. But it's not felt that there is a significant impact to the surrounding area. And while the application has been submitted retrospectively, we have to look at the proposal on its own merits. And it is not considered that there would be a significant impact either through the use of the site for touring caravan pitches in association with existing or from a visual perspective in terms of the additional number of pitches that are being proposed. So the existing landscaping does much to screen the existing site from public vantage points, and it's considered that the landscaping that was secured as part of the original 2024 permission will do much once established to screen that further, and the character of the surrounding countryside will be retained as existing. As I touched on, the highways impacts of the sites being increased in terms of numbers will not be significant. We have no highways objection, and it's considered that the access and visibility that was provided at the time of the 2024 permission would amalgamate the existing and proposed pitches to the highway network sufficiently. And given the distance of the pitches from existing residential properties, there will be no significant impact on residential amenity through overlooking or disturbance. Incidentally, we have had less of support from locals regarding this proposal, and therefore we do consider there to be a significant impact that would be warranting of refusal. So in summary, the application itself is of a minor scale. It's considered there are economic benefits to the locality in terms of additional holiday makers coming to the area. And as a result of the proposed design and layout of the site, there's not considered to be significant impacts either through a visual impact or on the highway itself. So the application is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Liam. We have one speaker on this application, and that is James Fenton, our planning agent. Would you like to come forward, James? Yeah, just put your microphone on. Let us know when you're ready to start, and we'll start the timing. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Afternoon, members. I won't take up too much of your time. Mr. Owens has covered it off pretty succinctly. The application is before you today for a modest proposal to increase the capacity of an established touring caravan site from 5 pitches to 10 pitches, relatively low key in its nature. The parish council have obviously raised some issues with the site as they, in their response to the application, perhaps in some ways more relative frustration with the applicant's retrospective approach, maybe, rather than the suitability of the proposal. Proposal itself seems a sensible and proportional proposal. As I say, Mr. Evans has highlighted the parish council's concerns, so I won't propose to go over those again. To satisfy their concerns, however, a number of conditions have been proposed, and the applicant's more than happy with all of these. As I say, a modest increase of pitches on an already established site, which seems to satisfy rather than planning policies. Respectfully ask therefore members to follow their officers' considered conclusion and grant permission. Thank you.
Thank you. Members. Any comments on the proposal? Councillor Filmer.
Yeah, I think it seems like a sensible proposal. I would just like a couple of clarifications from the case officer. More a general one. On page 21, it says proposal would also be exempt from biodiversity net gain due to the development having already been implemented. I would just like a bit of reassurance from our officers that that doesn't seem like a good precedent to set in the sense of get people to do it first and then they don't have to pay biodiversity net gain. So if that can just be reassured that that isn't something that's going to come back and bite us on future applications, because I know there's a number of applicants who'd be happy to not do biodiversity net gain.
Yeah, there's a list of exemptions within the biodiversity net gain regulations, and one of them is, yeah, it is if the application, if the development has been implemented already, and we're looking at a retrospective application, that is one of the exemptions, unfortunately, at the moment, so we're having to deal with that, but it's just part and parcel of the legislation that we're following.
It's, I mean, if I may, Chair, it's one of the anomalies of the way the legislation is written that we don't understand, but we have to work within what the legislation currently says. I would have hoped it could have been addressed in the latest legislation that's up. You'll be aware that the legislation, I think it came in on the 6th of August, where small sites have gone from 25 square metres to 0.2 hectares. I would have hoped to be addressed in that, but I don't believe it has. So it's one of the very strange anomalies of the system, whereby I presume it's something to do with the fact that to do BNG, you have to have a benchmark of the current situation to see what you're adding 10% to, and once it's already been implemented, very difficult to calculate that. So my suspicion is they found it too hard to come up with a way of doing it, but yeah, we are where we are. Sorry.
Okay. Sounds like not a great loophole to leave in there, but anyway, no. The other couple of things I wanted to ask was para 11.10. The parish council made comments about the landscaping and the fact it should have been natural native species and that it would be done in Lelandai. Is that something that we've agreed that has been done in, and is that being dealt with as part of this application to make sure it's put right? And equally, if I can just also on conditions, there's reference made to in condition 2 and 3 to touring caravans. And in 2 it says touring caravans should be occupied for holiday purposes only. So the question I want to ask again is, do those conditions deal with the concerns that have been raised by the parish that the site is being used for non-tourism caravans, as in motorhomes, or are they covered by the condition? And equally, that it's being used for long-term rental rather than holiday accommodation. So just want reassurance that we are addressing those issues, or at least flagging up to the parish that they are issues that they need to take up with our enforcement department.
Yeah, I was going to say, in regards to both those issues regarding landscaping and the use of the caravans themselves, I'm not aware of us having an active enforcement investigation at the moment into those, or whether the parish council have made any direct complaints to us regarding that. I can only go by what comments we received during the course of this planning application, but I'm not aware of, obviously they made comments about the landscaping in regards to the use of Lelandai. I don't think we had a particularly detailed landscaping scheme on the original submission, although we did condition that they should be native species. So obviously if that is an issue for us, we can look into that. And it might be something I can maybe look at with the enforcement team to see if they have received anything. It might be that I'm just ignorant of that. With regards to the concerns regarding the occupation of the caravans themselves, yes, I mean, we wouldn't want to see permanent residential accommodation here because there's no real justification for it. But the condition that we've imposed is similar to the one we imposed in the previous application, and is consistent with ones we have granted on other holiday sites. So I don't think there's anything on this particular site that would merit a change to the wording or the severity of the condition itself. But I think it gives us enough control to say, actually, you know what you need to use this for, and if you stray outside of that, then we will be able to enforce against that. But their comments regarding the length of time in terms of them seeking a 14-day permission on pitches, I don't think would be consistent with our existing conditions that we use on holiday sites. So while I appreciate their concerns regarding the nature of the use at the moment, again, I'd have to go back to our enforcement team to see if we've got anything on that, but I'm not aware of anything at this stage. But we do feel those conditions can be used and imposed and give suitable control to the future use of the site itself.
Sure. Just then for clarity, both for ourselves and for the agent who's in the room, what's being given permission here is for touring caravans to be used for holiday accommodation. Were they to be wished to be used for local workers to stay in or motorhomes, that would be beyond this condition and would be something that the parish might want to inform the enforcement people about.
Yeah, I mean, the nature of the condition itself, and again, is consistent with our approach, is that it should only be used for holiday purposes only. We don't specify a specific time or what holiday is considered to be now, because, you know, it could be one thing for one person, one thing for another. I mean, whether they're on holiday, you know, the description of development is for touring caravans, motorhomes, camper vans. We have specified that it should be for holiday purposes only, because it is consistent with previous permission. And I think it gives some comfort of knowing that terminology means that we will not be seeing permanent residents there. So I think from our point of view, you know, that's what we would accept and what we would expect to see within the site of use going forward.
Thank you for those questions, very useful. Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. Don't see any problem with this application. I think some of the questions have been answered. Happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Murphy. So we have a proposer and a seconder for the officer's recommendation to approve. All those in favour, please show. I think that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you. So now we go on to the second application, agenda item 6, which is for 73 High Street, Burnham-on-Sea. And Liam, this is you again, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So the application before you today is.
Excuse me, Chair, I think I should be concluded.
Yes, yes, please do. Yeah.
Okay, so the application that you have before you today is for the replacement of existing timber framed windows within 73 High Street in Burnham-on-Sea, and replace them with UPVC double glazed windows. There's also an element regarding the reinstatement of a section of wall on the front of the building where a former ATM was sited. This would involve it using matching materials to fill in the gap that's there at the moment. So the site itself is within a prominent position on the edge of the conservation within the eastern side of the conservation area, and it was formerly used as a bank at ground floor level. The property itself has been subject to recent planning permissions to convert the upper floors from one dwelling to 4 flats, and this involved the installation of a dormer window, which you can see on the west elevation there. The application before you today is seeking the works to replace the existing windows on the building at ground and first floor level using new PVC frames and double glazing. The application is before us today because the Town Council have supported the application, while we have an objection from the Council's Conservation Officer regarding the loss of the traditional timber materials from this prominent building. There's no objection to the replacement of the gap left by the ATM, which is located on the south elevation facing College Street here. That would be used with matching materials, and in and of itself would be development of such a minor scale. It may not even require planning permission, but it has been included as part of the works that has been submitted here. However, the concerns that have been raised by the Conservation Officer relate mainly to the replacement of the windows with UPVC, which is considered to be a non-traditional material within the conservation area. So the building itself is quite of substantial character. It occupies a prominent position on the corner of College Street there, High Street, and it's formed of brick and stone. The replacement of the windows themselves, which are traditional sash windows in the main, is considered to result in the loss of traditional materials, which would be to the detriment of the conservation area. What has been argued by the applicant's agent that a number of the properties within the conservation area have received replacement windows and have these non-traditional materials in of themselves. We have not been able to find many cases where planning permission has been granted in those instances, and unfortunately they may have been done through unauthorised works that have taken place over a number of years. Again, this in itself would not be a reasonable argument to suggest that the loss of the traditional materials in this particular case would therefore be justified. With regards to the loss of the windows, the Conservation Officer has submitted that there hasn't been sufficient arguments as to the public benefit that would equate from this proposal that would outweigh the loss and the harm caused to the conservation area. And it's felt that based on the recommendations within the report, that officers are unable to support the application and therefore made a recommendation to refuse for the reasons given at the end of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have one public speaker on this, and this is Darren Clapp, who is the applicant. Could I ask you to come forward to the table, please? You'll have 3 minutes, and just let us know when you're ready to start, and we'll set the timer. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Darren Clapp. I'm the applicant for 72.
Sorry, Dan, can you switch the microphone on, please? It's the grey button on the, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to make one thing absolutely clear from the outset. I support conservation. I understand why we protect important buildings and why we must retain their character and appearance. I'm not asking you to compromise that appearance. I'm asking you to allow me to protect it for the future. My question to the committee is simple. Why can't conservation and modern technology work together? These windows are in poor condition and need replacing. We are approximately 100 yards from the sea. That means salt, wind, rain, which is an extremely demanding environment for timber. Yet I'm being asked effectively to invest in the same material again, rather than a modern heritage style alternative that can retain the traditional appearance. I have obtained costs for doing this properly. Heritage style wood grain UPVC sash windows is approximately £43,000. Timber replacement is approximately £152,000. That is a difference of £109,000. I generally ask the committee, what does spending that extra £109,000 actually achieve? Especially when the alternative can provide heritage appearance we want, while offering better longevity, energy efficiency, and reducing maintenance. This is about preservation. I'm not trying to make this building look modern. I want it to look a heritage building. I want consistency through the building. As you know, the top floor already has UPVC. I want the windows to be synthetic to its character, but I also want to use the best materials available today to ensure that that appearance can be maintained for years to come. Surely that is compatible with the fundamental purpose of conservation. Protect the appearance, protect the character, but allow buildings to benefit from better technology and materials. 73 High Street is arguably one of the most prominent landmark buildings of Burnham-on-Sea. I'm prepared to invest a substantial amount of money into preserving it. Surely we should be encouraging property owners and entrepreneurs who are prepared to invest in our town and improve its buildings. I don't want to neglect this property. I want to improve it. I want to preserve it. And I want it to be something Burnham can be proud of. So I respectfully ask the committee to look at the bigger picture. This isn't a choice between conservation and development. We have conservation and we have sustainability. We can retain the heritage appearance while using materials that offer longevity, efficiency, and practicality. All I'm asking for is the opportunity to make a significant investment into this building and protect its appearance for the future. Please allow me to do that. Please support the application. Thank you.
Thank you. That was timed perfectly as well. Thank you. Would you like to respond to anything that was said?
I probably not, because I think the majority of things that have been raised previously, and I think have been outlined in the report. I mean, you know, the costs and everything we're aware of in terms of difference. So.
The Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. That was very informative. It's not really a concern. I do have a question about this, and I understand, as we heard the gentleman say, I understand the need for consistency and to be mindful of the effect that changing the facade of a historic building might have on an environment. but I'm not sure what we expect him to do. We've got a building, I'm looking at pictures now, and the windows clearly need to be replaced. We know that. The options that he has are to satisfy, some might say, an arcane rule in a dusty tome somewhere that's been written down for the benefit of continuity of somebody else's decision, or spend another £109,000. I feel fairly confident that were this work to be carried out on the windows, he's not going to put in, some B&Q nonsense in there. He's going to want to retain the look of this, other shops are available. He's going to want to retain the look and feel of this property. And I feel we'd be doing him a disservice if we were to say to him, you can't do it because we want it to be the way it was 100 years ago. It just seems, unfair and maybe a backward step. And we're talking a lot about making properties more efficient. We want to put double glazing in this property. Yet we're stopping work from happening. So that's more of a moan than a constructive comment. But I worry that we're not giving the applicant a fair go at this because of rules that have been laid down possibly for other properties. You get my drift. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Chair, can you hear me all right? I've lived in Burnham-on-Sea for about 40 years, and like others around this table, and College Street is a very, very mixed and diverse area. It has every kind of window you could hope to have. Obviously, opposite the bank, it has, or the former bank, it has Zalsha with metal windows. It has next door another shop with beautiful glass board windows. It has every cut from there, from one to the other. You have every kind of PVC, wood, painted all sorts of colors. It's a very diverse area. And here we have a building which was a bank. And I think that's a past tense. And it's a bank that was built of brick with facing, which was stone facing and marble, like it looks like to me facing. If you go to the side of the building, you see exactly how they put it on. And so this gentleman that spoke before for us, he speaks the truth, and that he is going to change the ATM part by renewing the marble and renewing the stone. And I think that's very excellent. And his promise to make sure the building looks okay is fine with me. What I am concerned about is, I think that we are in a situation where PVC has developed tremendously in the heritage area, heritage designs. And they will have to put in sash windows, only the size of the window, which almost looks Georgian to me. It's obviously not a Georgian building. And they've also got to make sure that it has double glazing. And the cost of that in PVC is quite high. And here we've been given a quote to see that where it comes down to is the whole business of trying to economically redevelop the whole building. So my personal feeling is that the speaker is definitely correct, that we are in a situation where College Street is, if you like, in a conservation area by name, but it's not really followed strictly by almost anybody. And therefore, I feel that there is not a case for the conservation officer to be strict about this, as long as this gentleman is held on condition to make sure that the windows, as they are size-wise now, will be repeated size-wise. They won't be bringing a bit down and sticking a bit in the plank across or whatever. They will use size-wise. They will use a quality heritage design with the quality, of course, double glazing, representing exactly as it is today. If that can be achieved, I believe he has, in my opinion, a long-lasting building looking just like it would look now. That's all I want to say, man.
Thank you. Councillor Grant, and then Councillor Filmon.
Thank you, Chairman. Totally agree with Councillor Murphy. I'd be Burnham myself for many years. There is such a diverse section of windows, buildings, how everything has been changed. Yes, I'm sure that there's a lot there been done which didn't have planning permission, but been there probably 30, 40 years. But also, I understand where the conservation officer is coming from. Personally, don't agree with him. I live right on the seafront in Burnham. The winds, the sand, the way the rain blows in, it's just false economy to go back to wooden windows on this. If it was an area that was totally in a conservation area and everything was the same, that would be different. This is, I believe this is a case where this should be overturned. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, councillor Fillmore.
Not the first time. I'm not gonna agree with you. It's more a question. We don't have the conservation officer here, which is difficult because all we have in the report is his statement that he doesn't think it enhances or preserve the character. What I don't know is why. Has he obviously, we've got conservation style UPVC glass window shown here. What is it about that the conservation officer feels is so bad that it doesn't work? I'm also slightly nervous of my colleagues' view that, oh, well, a fair bit's gone already, so does it really matter? Could I also ask if you showed, I think, the conservation area boundary, and I think comments were made about College Street and what was in it and what wasn't in it. I don't know whether everything within College Street, certainly the neighbouring properties look like they're not in the conservation area, but it may well be that the parcel's already been sold on the conservation area in Burnham and there's nothing worth conserving. But I'm a little nervous about making that statement at a committee, in effect, saying, well, so much has gone already, so what's the point in making any preference about anything else? So I'd like to understand from the case officer what it is about what the proposals are, which sound quite reasonable, that doesn't work on this. And also, we did have a few years ago a lot of work that went into a replacement window policy for listed buildings and conservation areas. And is that what this has fallen foul of? Because we were trying to be helpful and make it easier for people to redevelop and bring buildings into the modern era. What is it? I'm still trying to get my head around what is it that's so bad about this that means our conservation officer is prepared to say no?
I think what the conservation officer is submitting in their response is that there's a lack of public benefit that outweighs the concerns that have been raised regarding the change in materiality of the timber windows to UPVC, because what they consider is that timber cannot be replaced with UPVC, regardless of profile, regardless of whether you can actually get it to look the same. They feel that the UPVC is a downgrade from timber as being a tradition. I mean, I've tried to set that out in the report, maybe 11.8, paragraph 11.8, and obviously then we've got a little bit more context in terms of the sort of arguments that have been put forward in response to that objection. Yes, it is difficult to obviously try to put meat on the bones of an opinion that you can't then just go and ask right now. But I think from a policy point of view, we have to have that planning balance as to what the public benefit is that we're saying is achieved here as a result of the harm that's caused that our conservation officer is saying as a result of removing what is one of the few examples of traditional timber materials on windows within a conservation area that's lost so many. So I appreciate that where you're coming from in terms of the sort of feel like that we've lost so many examples of what might have been timber for UPVC over the years, and therefore what's one more. But it's also, well, in this particular instance, what are we saying is the overarching benefit to the scheme that outweighs that harm that's being submitted by our conservation officer in their opinion, their objection.
Chair, right? And then, yeah, just in terms of that, it's an important question because we have identified as officers that these works will cause less than substantial harm in heritage terms. So where any harm is demonstrated, where it's less than substantial, you have to apply the test of whether it's outweighed by public benefits. Now, members may look at this application and believe that there are public benefits that outweigh that. But if members were minded to go against the recommendation, we would have to be careful to set those out, because it's an important heritage consideration, because under the Planning List of Buildings and Conservation Areas Act, we have a duty to preserve or enhance conservation areas. Whether, and I hear the point is that, and it's not, I'm not criticising councillors, but I hear the point, oh, there's conservation areas and there's conservation areas. Well, actually they're wrong. You know, we've designated it as conservation area if we believe certain buildings or certain areas should no longer be within a conservation area, or that other areas should be brought in. We should be doing that through a process of conservation area appraisal and updating it. The fact of the matter is this is within a designated conservation area and has its, we have a duty to protect or enhance. As I say, you're perfectly entitled to take a contrary view. Appreciate, you know, what's in the report is very much a summary of what the conservation officer has said, and I don't want to bore everyone by reading it out completely verbatim, but I think just to give a bit of context about where they're coming from, it might be useful for me to just read a couple of paragraphs, if that's okay with you, Chair.
Yes.
So they said that the removal of the external ATM and reinstatement of buildings frontage would serve to consolidate this elevation, and provided the chosen materials match the existing, this can be supported in principle. So they've got no issue with that. Conversely, it's proposed that all existing windows are replaced with UPVC, which will materially change the character of the building. Many buildings in Burnham-on-Sea have already had their windows replaced with UPVC to the detriment of the character of the conservation area. The replacement will therefore serve to cause harm to the significance of the conservation area through the replacement of remaining traditional materials, particularly as there are so few timber windows remaining within the area. This continued erosion cannot be supported. The justification for the use of PVC is insufficient. The applicant refers to the need to replace the existing single glazing in order to improve energy efficiency alongside compliance with current building regulations. This requirement can be met equally, if not better, through the use of appropriately designed timber replacement windows, because you can have double glazed timber windows. It doesn't have to be UPVC. UPVC is materially different from timber, cannot be considered equivalent. It is not possible to achieve the same profiles or appearance in UPVC, and therefore the proposed material cannot be regarded as an acceptable replacement. No robust justification has been provided for departing from timber. And then the final bit, and I won't carry on, but it just says paragraph 213 of the NPPF requires clear and convincing justification for any harm to or loss of the significance of designated heritage asset. The justification provided for the replacement of original timber windows with UPVC is not sufficiently convincing. That's where they're coming from. I hope that gives you a bit more context. Yeah. But as I say, at the end of the day, it's your decision. You're the determining authority.
Thank you. Councillor Grimes and Councillor Martin, Councillor Bruce.
Thank you, Chairman. Just want to make it clear, when I mentioned about properties already having that hadn't got any planning permission, I wasn't condoning that at all. But isn't it ironic that we're trying to stop this now? Why didn't we try to stop it when the other places put PVC? Why didn't we get enforcement on it? I think it's like shutting the door after the horse has already gone out. And just moving on to one other thing as well, I've made many sash windows. That used to be my job in wood over the years. None of them are draft proof. You can say what you like, they are not draft proof. And the advantages of anybody living in a property with PVC windows as the standards they are today, and wooden sash windows, the difference is phenomenal, especially on the winds that we get at Burnham. So I think it's sometimes you just have to move along with this. If it was in a conservation area, there wouldn't be an issue for me. I just think that if we were that bothered about the conservation area, why didn't we sort it out years ago? And we never bothered. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know Burnham particularly well, and as a consequence, I have to look at the stance and advice given by my colleagues that do know it very well. And that's how we work as a committee. So in that respect, I'm looking at it purely as from an academic point of view, as it were, what seems rational. And bearing in mind the opinions or the notes made by Bob, Councillor Filmer, who is learned and knowledgeable, and I understand that, Bob, but the fact that the officer isn't here to state his case. We have got the reports in front of us. With that in mind, I would like to propose that we go against the officer's recommendation and accept this application. Was that the correct wording? That's the right way around, isn't it? Against officer, oh yeah. So there's my proposal. Thank you, Chair, and I think Alan had his hand up.
Councillor Bruce and then Councillor Bradford.
Thank you, Chair. Was a little bit concerned, going back to the previous planning application on this property, the one that gave the consent to convert it from 1 flat to 4 flats. So the first question is, was there anything in that previous planning application regarding the windows that we should know about? Because I unfortunately admit to not having gone back to have a look at the original planning application. That was the first question. Second one was, in terms of the viability of this development, refusing to allow them to put UPVC in would have an impact in terms of the cost of the development. Does that have an impact on the development actually going ahead? Because I think the need for 1-bedroom properties is quite high in our area in general. So we would potentially be impacting the viability of a development for 4 1-bedroom flats, which I believe are in demand. So I'd like to know what effects, do we take into account the financial impact this would have? And also, I think point 11 in your report, 11. There is a statement in one of your, sorry, I've lost the point where it was, about the nature of wood. Basically, it's about there's a statement in the report there that says about the fact that wood is more sustainable, more durable, more appropriate. And it's a statement that I'd like to know where is that backed up with facts, because it's just a statement. And obviously the applicant is saying that the PVC is more sustainable for the marine environment and everything, but actually the report is stating something completely different. But I'd like to understand the reasoning behind that statement. Thank you.
I mean, through you, Chair, I mean, just as a statement of fact, you can grow timber, but you can't grow UPVC. I know that's a bit of a, sounds like I'm being virtuous, but I'm not. I'm making a point there.
Durability.
Well, yes, but sustainability comes from lots of different factors, doesn't it? That was the opinion that's been put forward, and it's certainly the opinion that was provided in the Officer's report. If members felt that they disagreed with that, obviously as decision maker, you can take a different view.
Thank you. Councillor Bradford.
Chairman, thank you. Firstly, what a shame it ain't still a bank. And the bank manager sat in his swinging chair, he'd have to make a decision on a thing like this, right? In his present day and present state of economics. I was the bank manager, I'd go for the UPC. I know the other things go, they look nice, the most. Don't forget, with all these forest fires going on everywhere, with all them going on everywhere, all over the world, the price of timber is gonna go through the roof. But and a lot of these things will not be done as it has been. That is my opinion. I'm looking ahead a bit. I look at Canada, and a lot of the timber coming from Canada goes doing things like this, and they're in one dreadful state with big fires at the moment. So due to my knowledge of 79 years, etc., looking in and economics, having dealt with bank managers, I think myself, I was sat in my chair, and the point of economics, purely economics, I think I'd go for BBC. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hand.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I'm a very strong supporter of conservation, but I've listened to all the talk, and obviously the people who live in Burnham are fully aware of the effects of the salt, the wind and the air on the wooden frames of the buildings that exist now. Now, 100 years ago, do you think if PVC was available, people would have chosen to use wood that was going to rot in those wind conditions and air conditions, or would they have gone for something that was far more sustainable and better for the community? I mean, there's no answer to that question, but I'm just putting that out there.
Thank you. So, oh, Councillor Bruce.
Sorry, I think I didn't get an answer to the rest of the part of my question. Is that something that's being looked at?
Sorry.
About
Yeah.
the financial impact and the viability and one bedroom property.
With regards to financial viability, I think we look for the best outcome from a planning perspective. So we appreciate that sometimes that will involve higher costs. We obviously, have the requirement for various surveys to be undertaken and things like that. I mean, we can't discount those requirements as a result of costs and those details if we feel it's necessary. So in this case, the conservation officer has the opinion and has given that to us as a recommendation to say that timber is the preferred material for this particular site because of its heritage implications. So while I appreciate what the applicant has said in terms of the difference in cost, I mean, that's something obviously that will be a consideration to them. But from a planning perspective, we have to look at the best outcome from a policy and a material perspective that would impact, most positively from that point of view. With regards to the original permission for the 4 flats, no, the windows weren't proposed. These came in simultaneously, so this application has been with us for some time, and it's been submitted on the basis that windows were replaced within this scheme alone. That original conversion scheme did involve the erection of further dormer windows, which you can see on the plans there. But as the original dormer windows that's in the roof at the moment is of UPVC, there was no objection to that from the conservation officer. So it's the loss of the timber that we're obviously determining in this particular aspect, but that wasn't a factor in the previous permission that was granted to the flats.
I'll let Councillor Bruce speak first and then, yeah.
Is the impact of the cost of using timber against UPVC, if that were to prevent those 4 flats being completed, could that be considered as a public benefit?
Potentially. I was just going to make the point there because I'm glad you said that, because one of the things that was being stressed was that this is a cost to the applicant or the developer. And obviously when you're assessing public benefits against less than substantial heritage items of significance, you have to look at a public benefit rather than the benefit of an individual. So that may be one way that you could view it, that the scheme won't come forward. We haven't got a 5-year land supply, and if the scheme doesn't come forward because of the viability, there is a public benefit in allowing PVC in this specific instance.
In particular for the fact that they are 1-bedroom properties.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Councillor Filmon.
Just on that last point, I mean, I don't think we can go down that route because this application is for the installation of replacement windows. It's nothing to do with the flats. The flats permission is a separate application. So this application is not creating 4 bedrooms or 1 bedroom or 1 flat or 4 flats. It's changing the windows in an application that's already been granted elsewhere. So it may well be that the argument is right, but I don't see how it pertains to this application because this isn't for flats. This is just literally the change of windows.
That's a fair point, through you, Chair. That's a fair point, albeit the argument could be mounted, but I don't know if it was mounted by the applicant, that if they had to replace with timber, that makes it unviable, and then, but you're right, then it can't be delivered, but it is a separate application. So, that's a fair point. So in that instance, you may wish to look at any other public benefit that you can see arising from this scheme. as I say, the conservation officer and the planning officers have not found what that public benefit that outweighs the less substantial harm to historic significance is. But members may find that they disagree with them and that they find us public benefit.
Well, councillor Grimes and then councillor Murphy.
I just want to say the public benefit is in the living standards of a property with wooden windows on towards the seafront in Pernamon-on-Sea with a window of the channel. I think is a credible thing. I just don't think that there's such a lot of difference between the comfort of PVC windows. I don't like PVC, I'll be honest, but looking at it wholly, I just think it is definitely a public benefit, whoever lives in there, to get draft-free windows. That you've got with PVC, you haven't got it with timber.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you. At this stage, perhaps comment is superfluous really, but what I would say is that one of the benefits of PVC in all its aspects is the limitation of noise. And I'd just like to point out to you that the former bank is right opposite a very, very noisy pub. And I would suggest that one of the benefits to the public is, and I find this in my house and in all the bedrooms and so on, that the way that PVC can be sealed is a tight fit, shall we say, is a real benefit to the public in that particular public area, which is a noisy street. I don't know if you've ever been in the town of an evening at the railway pub or around that area. People going backwards and forwards, talking in the street, going to the I don't know what you call it now, what do they call it? The new shop, the Laundus shop. They're standing in the street talking loudly, louder than I'm talking now, and you can hear them quite clearly. Now that will be a benefit if they do get PVC. The other thing I would just say in passing, PVC today has been developed rapidly and substantially in design. Having said that, I'd like to point out to the person who came and spoke, and that he knows perfectly well that what he quoted would be for a certain standard of PVC window. There are several standards. If you go to the various people on the industrial estate in the Alport who specialize in this, there are standards now for all sorts of windows, including the windows that would be required in this case. The sash windows, heritage sash windows, are available in different models, which are even more look like wood. They look very much like wood. So I would say the argument about it not looking like wood is very weak indeed. I would support the turning over of the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Murphy. So are you seconding
I am.
councillor Martin's proposal? As we've had a good debate, I think, and to try and wrap this up into the recommendation. If members were minded to agree against the officer's recommendation, I would propose that a condition is included around to control the size and the heritage design of the UPVC windows. I'd be grateful for your comments, standing officers.
Well, we would normally, sorry.
I was going to say, we normally put on a joinery details condition that requires all the details of each window to be submitted and approved. That would obviously be in conjunction with, advice of the conservation officer. So we could add that, and I think it may also be worthwhile just making sure that we condition the materials for the ATM infill to make sure they match the existing building. It does state that within the information provided, but I think just to catch that as well, if we are going to go against the recommendation. So we could add that.
We won't use the word joinery, of course. We'll be asking for full profile details of the windows.
Okay, thank you. So as proposer and seconder, are you both happy with those conditions? Okay, so with that in mind, we will go to the vote, and all those in favour of voting against the officer's recommendation and to accept the proposal to install replacement windows, and we need to include the reinstatement of building frontage following removal of ATM. All those in favour of that proposal, please show. So 9-4, those against? 1, and so that's all of us, isn't it? No abstentions. Thank you for that debate, members. Okay, I'll just give the officers time to go to the next application, and then we'll. Oh, yes, I forgot that. The way to go. Probably gone home. Okay. So we will now go to agenda item 7, regarding Castle Street. Change of use from offices into 13-person HMO at 6 Castle Street.
Thanks, Chair. So this application is related to 6 Castle Street in the south centre of Bridgewater, just down the road. And the property, which has a former use as an office, is seeking consent for the conversion to a 13-bed HMO. The site itself is a Grade 1 listed building, and it is considered that this proposal would bring the use of the property back into something like its original form as a former townhouse. So the site is located at part of Castle Street, which is within the conservation area of Bridgewater, the central conservation area. It is an end of terrace property, and it has a rear access of Chandler Street, which leads to a car park, which is raised above the ground floor level of the building, which has a sort of a small curtilage to the rear of the building there. No extensions or increases to the size of the building are proposed as part of this application. The works are mainly internal. These are the existing ground, basement and first and second plans of the building. So we have various offices on all floors, and a staff kitchen room at the back there as part of the sort of rear wing. The general format of the building will be retained as part of the proposal. These are the existing elevations. Again, these will be largely retained as existing. The proposals themselves. Okay, so there's very little in the way of changes to the basement apart from a replacement staircase. But by and large, the existing historic layout of the building will be retained and will be used for the various bedrooms throughout, providing the accommodation. The only external structure that would be erected would be the form of a bin store, which will be located at the back within this L-shaped single-storey structure, which will be enclosed by the existing walls to the rear of the building there, which is adjacent to the external stairs that lead to the raised parking area, which will also be retained. So the application itself was submitted originally for 14 bedrooms, but as a result of concerns raised by the Conservation Officer and Historic England, one of the bedrooms was removed to provide a communal living space at the front here, which will be alongside the kitchen and dining area, which is to the rear. So there will be from what was originally submitted, there is an increase in the amount of communal floor space within the building. Incidentally, the floor space regarding the bedrooms and the communal areas all would meet with the council's internal space standards for HMOs. So the proposed first and second floors here, as you can see, there would be some removal of 20th century partitions and alterations. But by and large, the historic fabric of the building will be retained as existing. And this application itself has been submitted with a thorough heritage assessment, which has been met with approval by the conservation officer. And the proposed changes are considered to be acceptable by and large throughout the existing structure. So as you can see, the external elevations will remain very similar to what's existing. There will be some minor intrusions into the roof areas, which would be for ventilation and pipes. But it is considered that these would not be intrusive on the street scene or on the setting or the character of the listed building, subject to those details being confirmed at a post-decision stage if approved. So if we go back through the plans themselves, so as I say, the changes to the building themselves, it is considered the building itself was formerly an office building, and that's its prevailing use at the present time. Formerly was a residential use as a townhouse when it was originally constructed through the listing. There have been comments received through members of the public who have sought to say that possibly the introduction of flats, self-contained flats, would be more preferable, given the site's location and the nature of the proposed changes. However, the applicants have submitted information and a robust assessment of what could be considered alternatives, which would involve much more interference with the existing historic fabric of the building. And overall, it is considered from a conservation perspective that the HMO use would be the most viable use in terms of retaining the historic layout of the building, as it would involve much less in terms of subdivision and interventions into the historic fabric to provide bathrooms and kitchens of that sort of nature. So as it stands, we are looking at HMO use, and it's considered that the site's location is a suitable location for such a proposal. Incidentally, the site itself has been subject to a previous planning application, which was refused. And that was refused on the basis of the application itself not sufficiently covering the heritage implications of the development. And it was considered there wasn't a robust assessment of the building at the time. I bring that up because the application wasn't refused on the basis of its location for HMO, and it was at the time considered to be a sustainable position for a building to be converted, as it is so sustainable within the town centre. So in terms of principle, it's considered the proposed use from offices to a HMO would be acceptable based on its location. These are the external elevations of the building. As you can see, this is a view from the side, and this is a view to the rear curtilage area from the car park. And as I said, many of the changes will be taking place internally and would not involve significant alterations that would have a visual impact on the conservation area, the street scene, or the wider area. These are some of the internal views taken as part of the heritage assessment that's been submitted as part of this application. So the application itself is seeking to retain as much of the heritage value of the property as possible. It is a Grade 1 listed building after all, so therefore it involves the highest level of conservation and heritage that would be something that needs to be considered as part of any proposal. So this is just for information in terms of the existing layout of the building and what features you can see. A number of the rooms have this historic paneling, which will be retained, and much of the alteration will be mainly through cosmetics to provide the additional bedrooms within the building. So I'll go back to this. So the application is before us today because of an objection from the Bridgewater Town Council. They considered the application to be not in keeping with the nature of the road, an overdevelopment and not appropriate for the conservation area. the residential use of the proposal as submitted is considered to be compatible with the surrounding uses within the area. There are a number of properties in King Square particularly that have gone from offices to residential conversions. And it is not considered that the use of this as a HMO within this location would be would in and of itself be considered incompatible with what other uses are within the area, which is fairly mixed. There's a mixed use that's located within proximity of Castle Street and King Square itself, and further on as you get into the town centre. Like I said, following the submission of additional information, it was considered by the conservation officer that the concerns that it was originally submitted as part of their submission in terms of their statement have been addressed. There's been robust justification in terms of the nature of the proposed use, and it has been considered that the HMO use would in of itself be the least invasive option of the potential impacts that could occur from a residential conversion as submitted. So it is considered that the viable use that has been submitted is one that could be considered the most optimum, and it would not harm the significance of the heritage asset as a result, which would be something that would have to be considered if another proposal came forward of a nature that has been submitted by a number of the objections that we have received from residents. As I said, the application during the course of it has been reduced from the 14 to 13, and as a result, there'll be less emphasis on the use of the bedroom spaces within the HMO than otherwise would have been if there had been a lack of communal living facilities, which are now considered to be acceptable. The proposed changes to the building would be mainly taking place internally, and therefore the impact on residential amenity of existing properties would be insignificant as a result, because no additional windows are proposed. And as I've said, the proposed residential use would be compatible with prevailing uses in the town centre further afield. The existing parking area to the rear would be retained. While this is considered to be a positive, the application site is in a sustainable location and is within walking distance of all facilities that town centre offers. So therefore, day-to-day facilities would be available to the occupants of the property. So overall, with regards to the proposed changes to the building, in terms of the planning balance, it is considered that the public benefit of retaining the existing building and bringing it into an active viable use, which would secure its future, would be considered to outweigh any minor concerns regarding the impact of the developments on the surrounding area and minor changes to the building itself. The impact on the conservation area and the surrounding town would not be significant, as I've said, most of the changes are internal. And it is considered to be an appropriate location for this type of use. So the recommendation is to grant consent for both the planning and the listed building application. The two reports that are in front of you today do include separate sets of conditions. So 082627 contains a number of conditions relating to the planning side of things, so mainly regarding the use of the building and the submission of a construction management plan to ensure the works are carried out in a suitable manner. 082627, which is the listed building application, 082628, which is the listed building application, contains a number of conditions that have been recommended, all from a conservation perspective, all with a view to securing details and future maintenance of the particular heritage assets, most significant features, and ensuring that all the works are carried out to a suitable heritage standards. So yes, the recommendation for both planning and listed building applications is to grant consent. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Liam. And just to clarify, this presentation covers both items on the agenda, doesn't it?
It does, yes. I think the application, the reports are fairly similar in terms of their content, and it was felt that the one presentation would cover both aspects of the reports.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so although there are a couple under the one presentation, I believe it would be appropriate to take two separate votes, one for the application, one for the development. And
And we
at
have
the,
speakers for the.
yeah. I was just going to say, and at the risk of being a pedant, in terms of the list of conditions, we do refer to the development, whereas under the list of building consent, we should technically be referring to the works, because these are listed building works, not development itself necessarily. So, if members are happy with that, for conditions 1, 2, and 3 on the list of building consent, I would like to change development to works. I mean,
Can we do that when we have had the speakers and the vote on this one? Then we will go into the detail for the next one, but thank you for reminding me. We've got 2 speakers on this application, and I'd like to ask Connor Stoll, a local resident who I believe is online.
Hello, how are you? Okay.
Thank you. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, perfectly. Thanks so much.
Lovely, thank you. We can hear you. Just to let you know, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Just let me know when you're ready to go. We'll set the timer and then I'll let you know when you've got a minute left.
No worries. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm ready. So yeah, you can turn it on. It's not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chairs and members of the committee, thank you for allowing for me to speak today in a strong objection to planning application 0826 00027. I want to be clear, I'm not objecting to the principle of this property being lived in. My objection is the intensive use of this exceptional historic building as a house in multiple occupancy, and to the lack of convincing safeguards for its long-term future. This is a Grade 1 listed building. This is the highest level protection of building of exceptional historic interest. To put that in perspective, Buckingham Palace is also a Grade 1 listed building. I'm not suggesting the 2 buildings are identical. I'm saying that the Grade 1 designation tells you something very important. This is a building of exceptional national heritage value, and it deserves an exceptionally high standard of care and protection. I do not believe this application provides that reassurance. There appears to be no significantly convincing long-term management and maintenance plan demonstrating how this building will be properly cared for under the proposed intensive occupation. And my concern goes beyond what is written in the application today. Once permission is granted, what guarantee do we have that the building will continue to be managed and maintained in the careful, sympathetic manner that its historic importance demands? With a building of significance, we cannot afford to take that risk. Historic fabric, once lost, cannot be replaced. Historic character, once damaged, cannot simply be recreated. The applicant should therefore be required to demonstrate clearly that this proposed use is not only possible, but that it is appropriate, sustainable, and genuinely the long-term interest of the building. In my case, that case has not been met.
Just to let you know, you have 1 minute left.
Yeah, fine, thanks. I therefore respectfully ask committee to look beyond the immediate proposal and consider the responsibility we have to protect the Grade 1 listed building for future generations. We are not simply deciding how property will be used. We are deciding how one of our important pieces of heritage will be protected. For those reasons, I strongly urge you to object. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Connor. That you've raised some questions there. We have 1 more speaker, and then I'll ask the planning officers to respond to your points that you've made.
Thank you.
Can I now ask James George to come to the table, please?
Thank you.
Thank you. And you have 3 minutes. Just say when you're ready to start.
My apologies.
Sorry.
Sorry, my name is Lawrence Mirani. I was made aware that I was also allowed to speak.
That's for the next applicant. We've got you down for the next application, which also concerns Castle Street, but that's focusing on the listed building consent
Okay,
elements.
that's fine.
And you are down on the list, and I will invite you to speak shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair and members, for allowing me to speak today.
So I'm speaking in support of the applications for 6 Castle Street, a Grade 1 listed Georgian townhouse which has stood empty since 2017. An empty building is the greatest threat to any heritage asset. Every year a vacancy brings this building close to disrepair, and the challenge before us has always been to find a use that secures its future whilst protecting what makes it special. All of the potential uses for the building have been carefully and thoroughly explored. We've assessed the potential for office use, which have already failed here and more widely across the town centre. The market does not support a single dwelling of this size, and conversion to flats, which we have tested in detail through sketch schemes submitted with this application, would require new staircases, subdivision of the original double pile plan, and drainage routes through panelled rooms and historic floors. Your officers have accepted that flat conversion is simply not a suitable option for the building because of the harm it would cause, hence our previous withdrawal of our application to convert the building into flats. Following our extensive analysis over the past years, we are absolutely certain that our HMO proposal is the only viable use for the building as it is, and to preserve the building's historical significance. The plan form is preserved in its entirety, as you saw from the plans provided earlier on the presentation. Every panelled room is retained without subdivision, and all significant works are confined to 20th century fabric of low significance. Throughout the application process, we've engaged a conservation accredited consultant to lead the heritage assessment and design, and the proposals were developed through a series of pre-application meetings with both the council and the conservation officers, as well as Historic England. Wherever feasible concerns have been raised, we have adapted the layouts to suit the requests. As a result, your conservation officer confirms that all previous concerns are now resolved and raises no objection to the scheme. But beyond protecting the fabric, this use returns the building to the residential character it held for the first 200 years of its existence, and provides a feasible solution to fund its ongoing repair and maintenance for the longer term. Your case officer recommends approval of both applications, concluding that the scheme brings the heritage asset back into appropriate active use whilst respecting its historic character. We respectfully agree. This is the most suitable and viable reuse of 6 Castle Street, one that secures the repair and long-term future of a nationally important building. I would therefore ask the members to support the officer's recommendation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Officers, the first speaker raised questions about the long-term care of the building. Have you anything you'd like to respond with, please?
Yes. In the supporting information, there were a number of options that were proposed, as you heard from the speaker then, office use, subdivisions of the building into separate flats. It's not considered that the proposed use in of itself suggests that the building itself would fall into an unacceptable condition as a result of the proposal. The conservation officer has proposed a number of conditions that would secure details of how various works would be carried out, and ensuring that those would be signed off as they go. So in terms of the initial conversion, it's not considered that there will be sufficient elements of control to ensure that those works would be acceptable from a conservational perspective. Whether the building's use be a single dwelling, which, in the current climate, in terms of the size of the building, it's probably unlikely that will ever be brought forward again, but we've had previous office use, and then we've, other proposals for other flats. The HMO use in of itself is not considered to be something that would be significantly detrimental to the future maintenance and upkeep of the building and its future in general. At the moment, it stands unused, and unfortunately, when that occurs, that's when the lack of maintenance and lack of use can result in disrepair, and unfortunately, that building can then become, under threat. So I'm not exactly sure what the suggestion is in terms of how we would manage that. But like I said, from the details that we've had at the initial application stage, and the conditions that have been recommended, we feel that feel confident that we can ensure that the works are carried out to a suitable standard and ensure the character of the building is retained.
Thank you. Members, any questions or comments? Councillor Smedley.
I tend to support the objection by the town council and by the member of parliament on this, and I don't think it's appropriate at all. This development of the buildings or the buildings of the same size in Castle Street have far less occupants than them and a much more sustainable items of accommodation. One of the pictures I saw you show on there earlier was the potential car parking area at the back. I've recently just walked through that area. And if you parked your car where that was showed, you have to get 4 other people to move theirs to get out already. And that's before they've even moved in with this proposal. I think it's a major impact on the area. It totally changes the character. There's already a residence parking system in place outside. One of the few places in town where that was accepted. That's far too much pressure on this conservation area. It's certainly overdevelopment. And various of the objectors raised different policies. It's a contradiction of, but they seem to contradict each other. So I would appreciate advice from the officers which of those are correct, whether it's D1, D2, D3, or whatever in this. But it certainly impinges on the historic aspect of the area and the historic environment. And I would say we need to object to this and send it back in, really.
Would you like to respond first? And can I ask, is that a formal proposal to refuse?
In terms of the relevant policies, I mean, we've listed those under section 8.2 regards to the proposed applications. And that's for the full application there. Can't see any specific policies referred to in the objections, the list of objections, but I imagine that many of those could be taken under those policies that are listed in that section of the report there on page 8.
Do you want me to answer that?
I
policies?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
So in Dr. Mitchener's objection, he refers to policy D2, for instance, and he also talks about D26. But in a separate one, Ashley Fox refers to D2 as a separate. I just want you to clarify which one's correct.
Yes, so policy D2 is relating to promoting high quality and inclusive design, while policy D26 refers to historic environment. So they will both be relevant in this case in the sense that one deals with built environment and its impact visually on the surrounding area and the site itself, while D26 refers to heritage assets and impacts that alterations can have on those and their significance and the aspirations as to what will be an acceptable development in terms of reintroducing heritage assets back into an active use.
Sorry, and D1 referred to Ashley Fox?
D1 is flood risk and drainage, but the site itself is in flood zone 1, so it would be susceptible to flood risk from a planning policy perspective at least.
So can I just summarise that? Ashley Fox has got it wrong in his list. It's Dr. Mitchener's points are the ones that are relevant.
Members, any further questions or comments? Can I say, as a fellow ward member for this application, I've read the reports and I've listened to the presentation, heard the speakers, and this application does cause me concern just for the sheer scale of it. I mean, there are other rooms and HMOs that exist in that road, but not to this scale, for a grade 1 listed building. And for that, then it's a prominent position within the town. So I share concerns raised. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go off piste a bit in the style of my colleague Alan Bradford and talk not necessarily from a planning point of view, but I guess from the point of view of a dreadful snob, in that this is a beautiful house in a beautiful part of Bridgwater, and I care about Bridgwater, Bridgwater's future, and I have been party and witness to many conversations about HMOs in Bridgwater. And I feel, again, this isn't any policy guidance that I'm referring to. I just feel that this building in this place, we would be letting down a part of Bridgwater's community should we turn a place like that into an HMO. Now, that's based on absolutely nothing apart from me recognising the place, the building, and the history and potential future of Bridgwater. And that's really all I wanted to say.
Councillor Filmer.
Thank you. I think like all of us, I mean, these applications only come to us because they're the difficult ones. So I mean, it's not straightforward. I can understand the concerns which have been raised, and yes, this is a beautiful building in a nice area. I guess the issue that the applicant has got is this building has remained unused for a considerable amount of time. It's now sat there empty. Is that a better use of the building than finding something else for it to be in gainful use? We've heard from our conservation officer through their reports that the alternative uses of going back to an office, or even if we went for a change to fewer units of accommodation, actually does more to damage the fabric of the grade 1 listed building than what's in front of us at the moment. I must admit, I was surprised to hear that was the case, but we have professional people to do conservation work for us. And if that's their opinion, I'm not in a position that I can actively challenge that. We haven't had objections from other departments within the council for the change of use to HMO, and I know HMOs in themselves are a very difficult subject, but we have to look at each application on its own merits, and as this one stands at the moment, it is bringing back into use a currently unused building which could become at threat if it goes on being empty and no practical use. It seems to be a use that, as our conservation officer believes, does the most that can be done to maintain the fabric of that building. I think the question that the speaker was asking, and I wondered whether we could get a view from our officers also, was it was more about not the works to transform it into an HMO, but the ongoing maintenance of that so that it protected the fabric. Now, I know this will still remain a grade 1 listed building, so it still has all those regulations, but is it not possible that there could be something like as we do with other sites, like an ongoing management plan that would give some confidence that there is a maintenance of the fabric and the special features that we've seen in some of the pictures of this? But it is that difficult. I mean, the difficulty I'm finding is it would be easy to turn around and say, yeah, we say no to it and it just stays as it is, but it won't stay, that it will continue to deteriorate, and whether this is the way of actually protecting it going further into the future.
Through you, Chair, just on that last point about management plan, as a listed building, the council does have powers to issue repairs notices in terms of if a building is left to go to rapid ruin. So that would be the appropriate way to do it. So there is control. if that satisfies you, councillor.
Any further speakers? Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, I am puzzled at this because my colleague next to me on my left spoke quite eloquently about the problems with parking, about over parking and about existing parking. You'd have to get 4 people to come out of the parking space to get out. I mean, this is a significant objection. I think what I'm seeing here, looking at the thing, I read through I was just sitting lazily reading through some of it, and 1127 is most interesting. And it comes at the very end to say 4 bathrooms alongside the rooms with ensuite facilities, and the floor space proposed would meet with the minimum standards set by the council's HMO licensing standards. And it seems to me that it came from 14 to 13. I think it's not come down far enough. It's got too many, everything is, some of the bedrooms, 12 square meters, that's what? 3 by 4? 3 meters by 4 meters for a bedroom? It's a minimum standard, it's all minimum standard. Why would you have to have minimum standards in an HMO when you could actually reduce the number of people and have better living? So I have to say, it seems to me the car park's jammed. The place itself is minimum and get as many people as possible. If you wanted to, I personally think we should, the recommendation is approved. I think we should object to the following and ask for defer it. Defer this application and ask them to rethink what they've got here, because to my mind, the car parking and the interior has got too many people in it. It's purely just minimum space. So I don't know if that appeals to you all. It's something that I looked at and I thought, well, this is crazy. Minimum space for 13 people. Even the public rooms are not big. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm sorry, I've rabbited on, so I'm making a couple of points. There you are.
Okay, we have 2 proposals at the moment, but I've got speakers for Councillor Ham and Councillor Bruce, so I'll take those first and then we'll deal with the proposals. Councillor Ham.
Thank you. I agree with the comments that Councillor Murphy's made, but also the officer said, to maintain the structure once it becomes an HMO, and obviously there's still an obligation to make sure the listed, the grade 1 listed building is maintained to a standard. By whom? The residents of HMOs are transitory often. They're not going to be paying into a management fee. Who is going to maintain the grade 1 standard?
The responsibility would rest with the owner of the property. So it would be the management, the developer.
So I just wanted to touch on Councillor Murphy's comments about the minimum space there. I mean, in 11.27, I referred to there being a range of 12 square meters to 22.5 square meters. So there is a variation in terms of the size of the bedrooms. And while I have said minimum standards set by Council's HMO license, I mean, there is a floor level to the standards which obviously each of the bedrooms would meet. So I'm not saying that each one of them would be at the bare minimum, they would be at the rock bottom. I'm saying that each of the rooms that have been submitted, including the communal spaces, would actually meet the standards that this council expects of a HMO, rather than saying, I'm not even trying to imply that we've got the bare minimum here in terms of this proposal. And regarding the car parking, I mean, this is just me from having been to the site a few times in the course of the application, but as the use of the building has ceased since 2017, I imagine a number of those parking spaces that have been blocking the access to this particular site may, once this becomes more of an active use and the works are underway, if approved, we may find that then becomes regulatory in terms of the car parking in access to it, which is a shared space. I mean, it's used by all those properties along Chandler Street in terms of the access to the back of those properties along Castle Street. That may in of itself become more accessible. But at the moment, obviously, with it not having a use, there may be a general feeling that, oh, if I park my car there, no one's going to complain because no one is currently occupying number 6. So I just wanted to point that out because I just felt like that the information within that paragraph wasn't necessarily, I think, coming through as it could have done. But yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bruce.
Thank you. Just some clarification and context of the rest of the buildings in the street. Is this the only grade 1 listed building on the street? And are all of the other buildings townhouses that have been converted into flats? Thank you.
I can't confirm at this stage without having a map in front of me of all the information about what the listed buildings are and what grades they are, what standards they are. But I am aware that I think the end number 14 to 16 has had planning permission in the last 5 years to be converted into flats. And I believe that was a grade 1 as well. So those works are currently underway, but I'm not entirely sure. I think the majority of them are grade 1 along Castle Street because of the fact that it forms part of the old Bridgewater Castle area. So yeah, I believe they are all of a similar standard.
Yeah. I think that would suggest to me then that there is a possibility that this townhouse could also be converted into flats rather than HMO, and it could be an acceptable use of the building if it's been done on other grade 1 listed buildings in the same street. So I think that would be, I would be more minded to reject this application on that basis, that perhaps the evidence shows, because of what's been done already, that it is possible and a feasible use to do it without damaging the grade 1 listed building too much. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hendry.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of silly points. And then I'll quiet. If you have 14 or 15 or 16 rooms in a building and they're all minimum size, that makes, sorry, not a job difference to anybody because they're still within the law and the guidelines. If you have persons who want to go in there and rent a room or two, the case is, they know what they're getting before they enter into it because it is within the law, minimum size, minimum standard. And if you've got a shop on a high street which stands empty for years and becomes a vape shop, for example, and it's better to be that standing empty, that just goes without saying, of course there is. The parking issue has not really been resolved yet. I'm not quite sure why everybody holds in on that. That's a little bit ambiguous, that one. But overall, the general trend is the building's better in use than not in use. And because it's been standing empty for so long, would tell me without any hesitation that they can't get a tenant for any reason to either buy the place, take it over. For the last years, they're not likely to get it over the following years because it's just not viable. As it stands, minimum size is accepted because it's within the law. Parking has not been resolved, not 100%, a little bit ambiguous, and the building is better used and not used for the moment. That's it, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Being no more speakers at the moment, so we've got two proposals. One from Councillor Smedley for refusal, which hasn't yet been seconded, but I will second that proposal on the grounds of overdevelopment, so policy D25. I'll Councillor Smedley just to make sure I've got the intent of his refusal.
Sure, I also did D2 and D26 were aspects in that too, weren't they?
Yeah.
So Chair, sorry to push on this, but by saying overdevelopment, if this were to go to appeal, what aspects of those overdevelopment are you identifying, or the councillors identifying as being the harm? Because we have to demonstrate the harm, not just say something's overdevelopment. So is it about parking? Is it about disturbance? Is it about movements? I'm really sorry to press you, but I think we would be challenged on that if it goes to appeal. So I think we'd need to set out at this stage, especially in the new appeals processes that we have nowadays, where we're not allowed to. Actually, I don't think that would be caught by this because it would presumably submitted before March. Yeah, okay, but even so, it's good practice to obviously identify harms. And I'm sorry to push you on.
No. Councillor Martin. Wish to come.
Thank you, Chair. I'm still, I think that our confusion over this is shown by the fact that we're not all jumping in with comments. I think that this is a confusing application, but two things. The building isn't going to fall into repair because the guys, whoever it is that owns it, have just paid £250,000 for it. And number 10, 2 doors up the road, is already flats. And I'm making the grand assumption that if 6 is a listed building, 10 is also a listed building. And I'd like to know why we can't do the same thing there. Why has it got to be HMOs? Why can't it be nice flats? Which is a comment that somebody made earlier. And I know that we have this thing about putting holes through listed buildings, but they've done it in number 10.
Well, sorry, just to confirm, 1, 6, 10, 12 are all grade 1 listed.
And 6, 10 and 12.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, is there 14, 16 as well? 14 is as well. Actually, yeah, that's grade 1.
So it was possible in 10. And obviously,
10 10's grade 1, yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Before I probably, Councillor Smedley, did you want to come in?
Just for information, 10 is a 4 flatted sort of property of a similar size. They managed to get 4 fairly sized flats in there, which is suitable, adequate sort of for the nature of the street. Number 9 across the road is a single occupant townhouse, for instance. All we need now is for the Legion to become a housing multiple occupation, and we've got some nightmare Hogarthian vision of Georgian Bridgewater.
So the overdevelopment, in my head, is around the intensive use of a grade 1 listed building within a heritage area. That is it in a nutshell.
what do you think?
Brian.
This, this happens to be a really difficult one. If it stays empty, it's going to deteriorate. It's not used as an HMO. We don't know what else it's going to be used for. There's been talk about flats, but we don't know what the layout was in the ones that's already been flats. And as I understand it, it's not really compatible with what work you've got to do to turn it into flats. I think this is what makes it difficult for me. Of which it comes down to just the two things. It'll deteriorate if it's not used for something. Nobody else seems to have any idea what they can do with it. And I think that's what makes it difficult. Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, we can only consider the application here before. It's not that, it's a 13-bed HMO.
Yep.
Sorry, Councillor Bradford.
Thank you, Chairman. I have to agree with Councillor Martin. I've been just sitting and thinking about it, thinking about it, and it's not been received everywhere in good things, these HMOs. There comes a time, perhaps sometimes you've got to take a bit of a stand on it, and it's very, very difficult. All these buildings turned into HMOs. Is this a relic of our planning policy? We're just slowed down and not rev it up in any way at all. There's no doubt about it. There's been a bit of a lull in the planning everywhere. And the planning would have gone on a lot quicker. Would some of these things be occupied by different sort of people? That is my opinion. Castle Street, done it for years, and I don't think it's the right thing for Castle Street. That's maybe not HMO. Sorry, that's what I thought. Sorry to be difficult, but that's how it is.
I think it's the intensity of the application. Because there are other HMOs that exist within the street, but they are much lower density. That's the thing. So we have a proposal and a seconder as chair, because I think we could sit here for another hour and probably not drill down any more then our feelings about this application. So, do you want to make one last comment and then I'm going to just go to the vote?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to try and influence the vote. I've listened to the debate, and you obviously members will decide on their own decision. The only thing I'd say is, could we, if members are minded to refuse, could we delegate the decision for the final wording of the refusal to the chairman in collaboration with myself or the chief planning officer, albeit you'd have to give us a clear lead that it's about, you believe it's about overdevelopment, harming the character of the heritage area.
Yeah, I'm very happy with that. Thank you.
Okay.
So that is the proposal which has been seconded. All those in favour of refusal, please show. And that's 8 in favour of the proposal. All those against? 2, and any abstentions, and 1 abstention. So that is carried.
The delegate.
The delegate.
To refuse.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So now, so what happens then regarding the next, which is about the listed building? So
You have a speaker.
we do have a speaker, yes.
And then I think you open up the debate again around listed building matters, because they are different to the planning matters.
Okay, thank you. And there's no presentation for this, is there? Just before I ask the speaker to speak.
No, I think it's all been covered in the original
Okay,
presentations.
thank you. In that case, I'd like to invite Lawrence Morani. I hope I've pronounced that correctly.
Yes, you have.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes to speak, and if you let me know when you're ready, we will set the timer and I'll let you know when you've got 1 minute left.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you for the time. Chair and members of the committee, my name is Lawrence Mirani. I'm joining here as a development partner acting on behalf of the owner, Frans Pover. Well, first of all, I want to share that we are really disappointed with your previous decision. We've been considering every different opportunity for this property for the past 3 years. We considered commercial use as a single dwelling, 2 apartments, 3 apartments, 4 apartments, 5 apartments. We even submitted planning application for apartments that was advised by your own conservation officer that we would basically retract it because he saw more viable use in HMO, as does your officer from the planning department and your current conservation officer. However, I also want to share a little bit of context on who we are. We have over the past 3 years delivered 4 successful listed building redevelopments, 2 in Weston-super-Mare, 2 in Newport, all grade 2 listed. In Newport included a 35-unit mixed-use scheme delivered earlier this year across 2 separate grade 2 listed buildings. Our track record speaks for itself. Newport City Council recently approached us directly to redevelop the Westgate Hotel in the middle of the city center, which is a 30-unit plus grade 2 listed building on their high street, even offering public backing because they know that we deliver high quality, sensitive schemes at scale. And this isn't our first heritage building and it won't be our last. Turning back to 6 Castle Street, this is a beautiful 18th century townhouse that has sit vacant for many, many years as office space with no viable long-term use. Your conservation officer confirmed a return to single dwelling use isn't supported by today's market, and flat conversion would cause real harm to the building's historic fabric. All alternatives have been fully explored and ruled out. What's in front of you today reflects a genuine dialogue between your planning and heritage team. And we have addressed all their concerns that have been raised in the process and designed a viable scheme that does justice to this character building. Maybe it also helps to add that we are currently managing about 200 units in the wider area. And we do this on a very professional basis. And we tend to keep the properties that we develop for the long run. Unfortunately, well, your decision stands and we will have to go into appeal. I just want to conclude by saying this. If we can. Sorry?
I forgot to remind you when your minute was up, but you have had your 3 minutes. Are you finishing off now?
Yeah, I'm finishing off. This scheme will help actively fund the building's future. We've included the financial financial analysis that shows that we can reserve around £10,000 a year, money a vacant office building simply cannot produce, and allocate it to the building's required maintenance. We're asking the committee to trust the same judgment as Newport City Council has put in us multiple times.
I will have to stop you there because that's gone considerably over the 3 minutes, but thank you for your comments. We have noted them. Thank you. Officer, is there anything you wish to say at this point?
Only for an obvious one, that what you're considering in this application is not the use, you're considering the impacts of the proposed works to the listed building. Unless I'm corrected by our legal advisor, there's nothing to stop members approving listed building consent, even though planning permission has been refused. I would remind members that if we were to refuse listed building consent, that would be a difficult position to defend, as we don't have any objection from the conservation officer who has judged the works to be acceptable. I know that sounds a bit counterintuitive because you've already resolved to refuse planning permission. That doesn't stop you giving listed building consent. Because the considerations are different. You're not considering the use, you're purely considering the impact of the works on the character, fabric and setting of the listed building. I hope that makes it clear. I appreciate it's a slightly unorthodox situation and hopefully our legal advisor agrees with what I've said.
Yes, I concur with the position that Zach has just set out for you. It is within your remit to grant the listed building consent, should you so wish.
So this is a means of protecting against whatever future decisions may be. Okay, members, and questions, comments, proposals? Councillor Filmer.
Only a slight procedural concern that I've got is that I feel very sorry for the person who's just spoken to us, because in effect they were speaking after a decision had already been made, which had somewhat stymied where they were. They also, whereas in normal case we would have one speaker, they would have 6 minutes up front. We would have heard all the comments about the work that the team had done with our conservation officer, our heritage team, the fact that they had talked about 3, 4, 5 flats. And they've actually taken the advice of the council by submitting what they've submitted. And I think it would have been useful if members were fully aware of that, which we're obviously in that position now anyway. I personally see no problem with the listed building because our conservation officer has said this is the right way to go. The problem is it won't happen because we've already turned down the first part of it anyway, but that's academic. So I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Just for clarity, I mean, the speaker did request to speak for this application.
For the councillors around the room, the speaker who just spoken specifically put themselves down for 0826 00028, not the previous application. But the two speakers are both speaking on behalf of Matter Own House Limited. And I think it would have been useful to clarify that with the speakers if we, but to do it the way we have, the speaker had a completely dead rubber to play because we'd already decided we weren't going ahead with the application.
I realise that, but that's, you know, that's their prerogative to do it that way. Sorry, Councillor Filmer, did you propose Okay, we've got a proposer. I don't see any more speaker. Councillor Ham, second, and councillor by seconded. Councillor Ham. Sorry, for regarding the report on the listed building consents. All those in favour, please show. Eight. All those against? And abstentions? 3 abstentions. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Chairman, just to clarify that there will be slight, unless members disagree, we'll reword development works as previously mentioned.
Thank you. We'll just give a few minutes for the next presentation to be set up. If anyone wants to take a short comfort break, now is a good opportunity. Back. Right, we're on our final application of the afternoon, agenda item 8. 9. And this is for 1415 Cornhill, Bridgewater. Santa, would you like to start the presentation, please?
Thank you, Chair. This is a full planning application for the change of use from a retail use to an adult gaming centre, which is a sui generis use with 24 hours operation, together with some alterations to the shop front. Now, the site is within Cornhill. It's within the town centre, it's within the conservation area, and it's non-designated heritage asset. There are quite a number of listed buildings nearby. In terms of the actual principles, the main consideration relates to the principle of development, the design character of the area and heritage impact and impact on residential community and crime and design matters. Again, I'm showing you the site, the town centre. The site itself was a former WH Smith store, which is located here, if you can see the mouse on the map. And what's shown on this map, it's showing the policy constraints of the policy identifications. It's within the town centre, it's within the primary shopping area. It's within the primary shopping areas also has, because of the red markings along here, it's within the primary retail frontage. This is the layout. It relates to the ground floor only, and the layout on the left is existing, the layout on the right is proposed. The proposal also includes changes to the entrance into the premises. The existing windows would be retained, and the existing black granite plinth would be retained and restored. The shop front would be tiled in black granite, and the installation would be the installation of a new flush, unframed, toughened laminated entrance door. And the image on the left is existing, image on the right is proposed. As you can see, there are some alterations to the entranceway. And these are a couple of photographs of the existing premises. So in terms of the principle of the development, there are 2 main policies really that relate to this sort of use. We've got B18, which relates to proposals within Bridgewater Town Centre. And we've also got D18, which we'll go on to in a moment. Policy B18 is on paragraph 11.5 of the report. I will run through them. It relates to proposals that support, proposals will be supported in Bridgewater Town Centre, which contribute to the following objectives. Re-establish the town centre as a key destination through additional retail floor space, leisure uses and other appropriate town centre uses. Promotes high quality and varied retail and leisure offer. Promotes regeneration of the town centre, enhancement of the setting of the River Parrett to deliver high quality public realm improvements. Shall integrate into the town centre with a wider town through improved connections and linkages to prioritise walking, cycling and public transport. And policy D18 supports existing and new main town centre uses where they contribute to the following objectives. And as I said, this is at paragraph 11.6 of the agenda item. I will run through them in full. Supports given to proposals that are compatible with the role and function of the centre, improve the vitality and viability of the centre, enhance the image of the centre, encouraging convenient and accessible local shopping facilities, compatible with the scale and character of its location, encourage access by sustainable and safe transport modes. Now, the policy also refers particularly to sites within primary retail frontages, and this site is within primary retail frontage. It states that proposals within these areas for ground floor non-retail uses will only be allowed if the proposed use would not undermine the retail function of the town centre and maintain and enhance its viability and vitality. In determining any non-retail applications, the following factors will be considered: location and prominence of the premises, size and width of the premises, the number and distribution of other existing and committed non-A1 uses within the primary retail frontage, the length of vacancy and evidence of marketing for a minimum of 12 months, the nature and character of the proposed use, and the design of the shopfront. So in terms of meeting policies B18 and D18, the adult gaming centre is a leisure type use, although a sui generis use. Town centre is the most appropriate location for its use. Gaming centres are a leisure use, which fall within the definition of a main town centre use, and as it is in the centre of the town, it is accessible by various means. It would be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It would be likely to result in gaming centre customers visiting other shops or services in the town centre. The proposal would also include an amended shop front, which would retain an active frontage. Premises has been vacant for more than 18 months, and the proposal would provide a varied offer and bring a vacant property into use which could otherwise remain vacant for the foreseeable future, which would have an adverse impact on the economic resilience of the town centre. While it's a relatively large unit in a very prominent location, it's separated from the betting shop within the same primary retail frontage by a retail unit and a coffee shop. And beyond that, there's an ice cream parlour and further commercial units. Along the street in the other direction, there is a coffee shop, retail unit, a bank, and further retail uses. Opposite are mainly retail uses. Given the separation distances between the application site and the betting office and distance from the other gaming centres, which are a significant distance away, one being within the High Street, another being within 4th Street, the proposal would not lead to an over-concentration of gambling uses in the primary frontage, or the wider town centre would not harm its retail function. The scheme would not lead to an over-concentration of gambling premises which are an appropriate use in a town centre. And given the proposed active frontage, extensive hours of operation, and opportunity for linked trips, the proposal would not adversely affect the vibrancy of the town centre of Bridgwater. Therefore, it's considered that support can be given to a principal increase on the grounds that retail patterns are changing, and it would prevent a unit being vacant in such a prominent location. In terms of design, character of the area, and heritage impact, the site is located within a prominent location and within the conservation area. The building is a non-designated heritage asset. There are also quite a number of listed buildings within close proximity to the site. The submitted heritage statement is comprehensive and concludes that the proposed works will not serve to cause harm to the application site, the conservation area, or indeed any listed building. The Council's Conservation Officer raises no objection and recommends conditions regarding materials and finishes to be provided if consent is granted. In terms of impact on residential amenity and crime and design matters, the site is within the commercial town centre where there are currently a number of late night users. The adult gaming centre will operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are several properties located on the upper floors of Cornhill and to ensure that the proposed development does not have an adverse impact on the residential properties. A site-specific noise assessment has been submitted with this application. A site waste management plan has also been provided to demonstrate how waste would be managed. The environmental health officers reviewed the submitted noise assessment and raised no objection. Avon and Somerset Police's crime prevention officer also raises no objection. Welcomes the positive proposal in terms of the submission of the security, crime prevention and social responsibility statement that's been provided. They welcome the removal of the recessed entrance door, and they welcome the retention of the existing shopfront windows, which will help to maintain an active frontage. They made some recommendations which the applicant has agreed to comply with, that the public access be restricted to one main visitor entrance, and that is what's proposed, that all external door sets certified to one of a set standard, that private areas such as offices, staff room and stores will require additional security, and CCTV systems should be designed to provide comprehensive coverage of all publicly accessible areas. The agent has confirmed that there will be a single public entrance located centrally on the Cornhill frontage. The rear fire escape and the exit onto George Street will be solely used for emergency escape purposes only and will not function as a customer entrance or exit. The removal of the recessed entrance is intended to improve natural surveillance of the site and eliminate potential area for loitering and concealment. The agents also confirmed that the recommendations made by the crime prevention officer would be followed, and the application is accompanied by a security, crime prevention and social responsibility statement. It's considered therefore that with an appropriate condition, the development would have no undue adverse impact on the amenity of residential properties. To conclude, it's considered that the proposal would have no adverse impact on the character of the area, heritage asset, impact on the viability of the town centre or amenity of neighbouring residents, and accords with the policies within the local plan, and therefore the recommendation is to grant consent.
Thank you, Chantal. We have one speaker on this application, and that is Charlotte Williams, who I believe is online. I'm sorry, Charlotte. Sorry. So if you'd like to put this microphone on, thank you, and you'll have 3 minutes, and just let us know when you're ready to start, and we'll set the timer.
Yep, all good, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the Planning Committee. This planning application seeks planning permission for a change of use from retail to an adult gaming centre. The applicant has worked closely and collaboratively with your officers through post-application discussions to deliver a development that complies in its entirety with the council's adopted development plan. East Kent Leasing is the applicant, and it is a family business who operates on high streets such as Palace Amusements. It is a family business who have been in the gaming industry for over 40 years. The application seeks planning permission to change the use of a vacant retail unit within the defined town centre and primary shopping area. The unit has been vacant for 2 years, and a comprehensive marketing exercise was undertaken which identified no viable retail offers for the premises, with interest only coming from gambling operators. This is consistent with the wider challenges facing the town centre, with the council's 2025 town centre health check identifying that 17.2% of units in Bridgewater town centre are vacant. If approved, the change of use will bring the premises back into full economic use, increase footfall on the high street and contribute to a more diverse town centre offer. A total of 7 part-time and 2 full-time jobs will also be created. There is no definition of overconcentration in the council's adopted development plan. Notwithstanding, there are only 2 other adult gaming centres in the town centre. An additional adult gaming centre will not result in overconcentration of the use, nor will it adversely affect the retail function of the town centre. In November 2025, Somerset Council's Licensing Committee approved the premises licence for an adult gaming centre. No concerns were raised by Avon and Somerset Police during the licensing process. There is no evidence to suggest that the proposed development will give rise to an increase in crime or antisocial behaviour. The premises will incorporate specific safeguards, including CCTV and 24-hour security. All staff will be appropriately trained, and the sale of alcohol will also be prohibited. The building itself is locally listed and lies within a conservation area. For this reason, the proposed physical alterations are limited and retain key elements of the existing active frontage. The design and heritage officers have assessed the proposal and have raised no concerns about effects on the conservation area. A 24-hour operation is sought, and the submitted noise assessment confirms that this would not have a significant adverse impact on the nearest noise-sensitive receptors, which include the residential properties at Fall Street and Cornhill. The environmental health officers have assessed the proposal and have raised no concerns in terms of noise, subject to appropriate mitigation being secured by condition which the applicant has agreed to. In conclusion, the proposal provides an excellent opportunity to bring the premises back into full economic use, support the vitality and viability of Bridgwater Town Centre, and contribute to a more diverse town centre offer. The fallback position, if the application is refused, is likely that the unit will remain vacant for a sustained period, which will result in the deterioration of the building. This is contrary to the council's aim for Bridgwater Town Centre to be a key destination and the government's aim to support vitality and vibrancy of high streets. We therefore respectfully ask members to support your officer's recommendation and vote in favour of the application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any officers, would you like to?
Can I just make a very quick comment before members go to the debate? And it's pressing because it's about an announcement that was made today by government, and I just want to make it clear that obviously that is an announcement about future intentions. It hasn't come into play yet, and in any case, in this instance, I'm not sure that those changes proposed by the central government would be relevant in this particular instance, because the two relevant matters in terms of 24-hour adult gaming centres relate to scrapping the aim to permit rule in the Gambling Act 2005, which encourages licensing authorities, and we're not the licensing authority or the planning authority for the purpose of this committee, to aim to permit gambling wherever possible. But as the ladies just said, they've already got a licence for this use, so that's irrelevant. And then the other point is that the government's saying that they will require planning permission to be applied for 24-hour gaming centres. Well, this is a planning application. So all I'm really saying is, timely though it is, the government's announcement, I'd like members to try and put that out of their mind and just deal with this application on the basis of the report, the presentation, the material that's put before you. And again, I'll just turn to Leslie and say, I hope I haven't said anything wrong there.
No, what you're proposing and what you are advising the committee can do is absolutely correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members. Councillor Martin, then Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Two things really, comments on the reports that we've heard. Thank you for the report, Shanta, most informative. The first one is that there was a statement made that there's no concentration of gambling sites in this area. There are two other adult gaming sites, what we would know as gambling slot machine sites, whatever they're called. Two more in Bridgwater. One is at the end of 4th Street, which is 90 metres away. The other one is in the High Street, which is 145 metres away. This one sits conveniently slap bang between the two. So to suggest that there, or to claim, rather, whatever the word might be, I'm diplomatic about it, that there's no concentration of gambling in this area would be wrong. 24 hours, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. My doctor isn't open those hours, and doctors are really useful things. And I have a bit of a problem with gambling. I do have a bit of a problem with gambling, but not actually gambling. Actually, I don't gamble. I just don't understand why it's a good thing. I don't understand it at all. Maybe that's my naivete, I don't know. But there are two more gambling sites. This one sits nicely between the two of them. But the other thing that I was thinking of was the statements made in the previous presentation about this wouldn't cause further antisocial. There wouldn't be a problem with drinking. There wouldn't be a problem with whatever it might be. I find that really quite odd, in as much as, well, if you were to meet somebody for the first time, you'd say, oh, this is Trevor. he hardly ever sets the light to things. He's not an arsonist. I think, well, why would you say that? Why would you want to bring that up? If he's not an arsonist, why is that a problem? No, you wouldn't introduce somebody by saying that they don't do a certain thing. And again, I think we would be naive in thinking that gambling isn't a problem. We know it is. We would be naive in thinking that having another third gambling place open in Bridgewater, slap bang between the two of the others, in a place where people need help and support, isn't going to be a problem. It is. Whatever the regulations say, gambling is an issue. And I have an issue with it. Thank you. It's not a planning, it's not a planning thing.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sure Councillor Martin is, although he's expressed a view on gambling, he will be making a decision. I'm sure he would be making a decision purely on planning grounds.
I would absolutely, yes, thank you, yes.
Councillor Smokey.
But yes, there's two of those sites nearby. There's also 7 betting shops nearby as well. You kind of wonder what the point of going into the town centre for when it used to be for retail. So as the town council, part of his objection points out, and it seems to be suggesting that the quest for retail alternatives have been exhausted. I don't think that's the case. Also, as has been mentioned by various people objecting, just behind that area is a considerable residential area. People do suffer from a lot of the ASB in the town centre. Anyway, on numerous occasions, being ward council of that area, I've gone down side streets at the request of retailers there and found people using all sorts of substances in that area. It's not an area that we could be making worse by putting the wrong signals or what attracts them to the area. In the other list of objections, the submission by the Alliance Topping Group lists some very sensible reasons to object on D18, D26 and D25, and also provides a very good how to object to an appeal as well within its submission. So I would propose we reject this on that basis.
So, Councillor Sandy, noted your proposal to reject. Can you just go through the reasons why?
D18, D26 and D25 as listed in the Alliance Topping submission. Sorry, did you not catch that?
No.
I couldn't hear me, you sat next to me. D18, D26 and D25 as outlined in the Alliance Topping objection.
Okay.
18, 25 and 26, D.
D18, the retail policy.
Sorry, protecting the sense
Yeah.
community.
Yeah,
Historic
D25
infrastructure.
residential area. And D26 historic environment.
Councillor Filmer.
Just continue making myself popular states. I think if we're going to turn it down on whatever grounds, we need to give the officers the reasons behind the policies, because we can say it's policy X, but unless we say what it is about that policy that is the problem, because as we all know, you can pick parts out of the policy and find a reason to say it's either for it or against it. The other thing is it's already been picked up, but whether gambling or gaming is a good or bad thing, that's we're dealing with the application here. We can't deal with the moral rights or wrongs of someone who wants to put forward this application. And if we start getting anywhere near that, then we're on we are on dodgy territory.
Thank you. Whilst others are waiting to speak, can I just say, listening to the presentation, reading all the paperwork for this, on balance, I too have a problem with this application. In terms of the policy D18, when I look at the reasoning for it, it's policy D18 should enhance the image of the centre. This is somewhat subjective maybe, but I don't believe an adult gaming centre right in the centre of town, within a prominent position within the central area and dock conservation area, will enhance the centre. And also another consideration is that it should not undermine the retail function of the town centre. And I know we cannot consider other issues, but the police report, whilst they state no objection, it is subject to comment. And their comments are that the town centre within a 12-month period there have been 2,501 incidents with 252 crimes reported in the town centre just in May alone. And I noted from one element of their report, wider evaluation of data indicates that Bridgewater Town Centre is an area experiencing a high amount of crime and antisocial behaviour, which adversely affects the local environment. So from that, I read that it affects the other retail element of the town. And the police report said this must be properly understood when assessing likely impacts of the proposed change of use. So for those reasons, I would support the Councillor Smedley's proposal that it is contrary to policies B18 and D18 because it's questionable whether it will enhance the image of the centre and believe that it will undermine the retail function of the town centre in particular. Are there any other speakers? Yeah, Councillor Martin.
Thank you. It was Councillor Filmer, Bob saying a moment ago he's going to make himself popular, and I agree. Yeah, but I'm going to go out on a limb and do something I wouldn't normally do, and that is disagree with Councillor Filmer because he is a learned and experienced man. Oh yeah, I wouldn't do that normally, but we have a set of rules in the local plan, and we follow these rules. This is our Bible. We go by this thing. But we are in the centre of these things. We make the decision as the committee, and we have these sets of rules to go by. But we also have the local experience, which is why they put us here. We could have the situation whereby if the rules in this were just abided by, we wouldn't need to be here. We'd just come in. But we look for local information from people like Brian, Kathy. Now, I don't know this area. Sorry. But we are, this is the black and white in the planning world, and we are the grey. We are the people that deal with the real world stuff on the ground. Why is something a good or a bad idea? So while I entirely agree with Councillor Filmer, with Bob, that we can't go down a very tricky road judging things on moral grounds, we do need to be aware of the experience and knowledge of the people that sit around us and live in these places every day. That's what we're for. Or rather, turning that around, if that's not what we're allowed to do, what are we for? What's our job if we're not to apply local knowledge? Thank you.
Are there any other? Councillor Bradford. Oh, can I take our legal stuff first, please?
Yes, Chair, just in response to what Councillor Martin has just said, we may have received consultation responses, but it is conceivable that those people making the consultation responses do not understand the difference between the two regimes, the planning regime and its merits, which you are considering here today, and the licensing regime, which is something completely separate. So I think you do have to bear in mind when you consider this and you come to make your decision that you are determining this application on planning merits alone and do not allow sort of licensing considerations and moral considerations in regards to gambling to creep into your mindset when making a decision on planning merits. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bradford.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We stay for hours talking about the regeneration of town centres. Town centres. Every town is suffering, we all know that, and everybody that have lost what to do to get them back that they used to be. In fact, I will turn the clock back 15, 20 years now. I had a real standard argument with one of my colleagues. I said online would ruin town centres, right? And I'll stand by that remark now. If people had to go out instead of sitting in their homes and everywhere else, had to go out shopping, the town would stay exactly the same as they would. It's online. It's killed an awful lot of things. We talked about a bank today at Burnham. Banks are closed. No communication with people. Is it starting to tell on our younger generation? The ability to make conversations and things like that. Well, all these things are relevant. Everything's done far too much today with online. Everything has to be online. I'm an old-fashioned type. I absolutely hate it. I'd rather see people's eyes. Number one, you know they're sincere, and you can get some sense of the people. There's far too much of it done online. Now we can, like I said, scratch out here for hours trying to find out how we're going to regenerate town centres. And how are we going to regenerate town centres? You can only have so many. You can't have too many barber shops, that would be wrong. You can't have too many Betty shops, that would be wrong. W.H. Smith, I miss W.H. Smith. I used to buy a diary every year. They haven't found a place to replace it yet. That's all I'm going to say. And I certainly ain't going to buy one online. Now, how we come to terms with this, I don't know. And I hear what Councillor Martin said regarding the morals of all these things and all the rest of it, but we can't be governed by that. We are where we are. Sometimes and I frequent Bridgewater, not much I used to, but the shops aren't going to go to anymore. But you've just got to scratch around and that's how it is. But I tend to think that it's one too many. That is my opinion. I'm sorry if I go against, I'm sorry the planning officer, you got a very difficult job. All planning officers have had a very difficult job today. I'd hate it sometimes. I really would, but we got to make a decision as councillors and as people of the community. And it's what you see in the community, what you pick up from visiting places. And, you know, so really, I'm going to stop it. I could go on for a long time, but I am very anti-online. Thank you.
Well, we're not considering online at the moment, but Councillor Murphy and then Councillor Hendry.
Well, this is a very interesting opportunity to speak about this. I come from Burnham-on-Sea, and we've recently had the closure of a newsagent and the lease given to In Charlie's Memory, a charity, right on the high street. Everybody's quite shocked with this change. But having said that, the whole of that high street area and side streets are all full. Every shop is full. Everybody's worried about how we're going to regenerate high streets. I was in Bridgewater last week and I went into Millets to look for some summer shirts. And the lady said, it's 20% off everything, we're closing. We just can't take it anymore. And I thought, if Millets is closed, I mean, Millets are everywhere, aren't they? I mean, I don't mean to say anything about that, but. And so therefore, I have a different view on this. I have to say that it looks like Bridgewater is becoming, the high street is becoming a bit of a ghost town. And therefore, I am inclined to think that an additional social centre for gambling is just part of the deal. Whether you have one or two or three, it makes no difference. They're separated. They're businesses. Some people say in our panel that it's better to forget all the moral situations. Some people are, that's something else. I accept there are conditions for that. I mean, I listened to Brian, he tells me that, and clearly that building that we talk about here, that building is already occupied on its top floor, I think, by flats. It's already got other people involved in the building. So it's, to me, I personally would either abstain or would vote against this thing being nullified. Because I think Bridgewater is in a crisis situation. We, all of us, walk, come to Bridgewater and walk down and see what's going on. I mean, when W.H. Smith went, Marks and Spencer's went, it's just falling apart before our eyes. And you think, how on earth are we going to get Bridgewater? I mean, it has got an increasing population because of Hinkley Point, mainly. It's got a lot of social activity that's needed. So I personally would have no objection to a third gambling centre. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Murphy. Councillor Hendry and then councillor Bruce.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of small points, I'll keep it brief. Councillor Murphy answered his own question with something he said there. If Millet's is closed because they can't keep the shop open, that speaks for a lot of other shops too. So if they close, that shop will probably stay empty for some time. The one we're talking about just now, likewise. Now, if I'm right with legal counsel, Ms. Dooley and Elizabeth Dooley, we're actually deciding the shop for a building at this minute in time and nothing to do with the licensing. Is that correct or not? So we're not deciding, we're not going to say, okay, this is part of a betting shop, it's part of a baby shop. That's nothing to do with it. We're not licensing a place. That goes to the license committee. All we're deciding here and now is about the actual building itself, which is a whole different ballgame, completely different. So on that basis, I put forward that be planning permission. Thank you.
So just to confirm, there are two proposals now, one to refuse and then one to agree the officer's recommendation. I'll need to take the one to refuse first because it was made first. But in the meantime, councillor Bruce.
Thank you, Chair. I think mine's probably more of an observation. I think, in my opinion, this is not an appropriate location for a gaming centre. And I think we need to be a little bit more ambitious about what we want for our town centre. We have Pride in Place that's just beginning. There are opportunities. How are we going to regenerate our town centres? Well, so far from what I've seen, like you said, a lot of the flats above shops have been converted to residential flats. So there's going to be more people living in the town centre, and a 24/7 gaming centre is really not something that you want to have on your doorstep when you're having a quiet evening at home after work when you're tired. So I'm sorry, that to me is not an appropriate location for it. But I really would encourage members to have more ambition about what we can do with our town centres. Maybe in a few years' time, we get to the point where we go, okay, it's an appropriate use, there is no other use, we can't do anything else with it. For now, I think changing this from retail use to the gaming centre is not an appropriate thing to do. I think the time is wrong, and I think we need to be more ambitious. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just wondering if there are no other members who wish to speak, could I just say something before you? Because you're taking the vote on the first proposal to refuse first. So again, without leading you, because you're going to have a free vote on the two motions potentially. I just wanted to sort of perhaps put some meat on the bones of what I've heard, because there was a mention about policies, but not much further from that. So what I've heard and what Shanta's heard, tell me if I'm wrong, but it would be that this is this site's within a primary retail frontage where proposals for ground floor non-retail uses will only be allowed if the proposed use would not undermine the retail function of town centre and would maintain and enhance its vitality and viability by reason of the location and prominence of the premises, i.e. in a very prominent high street location, the size of the premises and the nature and character of the proposed use. It is considered that the proposed development would undermine the retail function of the town centre and would not maintain or enhance its viability and vitality. That's what I'm hearing. The second policy, that would be policy D18, because policy B18 is a supportive policy, whereas D18 says they will only allow these uses in primary retail functions. So I would stick to policy D18 as Councillor Smedley mentioned. Then D25 is around protecting residential amenity. I believe you're saying members were many members, not all of you, of course, were saying that this could lead to a loss of amenity value by disturbance, 24-hour activity. So there could potentially be a refusal reason on that grounds. Where I might, at the risk of upsetting Councillor Smedley, where I may disagree, is this argument about the historic environment, because we don't have an objection from the Conservation Officer to this use. The only change to the historic environment really is the change to the access, where the recessed access would come flush. Of course, if members felt that was a reason to refuse, then that's entirely up to you. But I don't think it's as strong as the other policy grounds, which were D18 and D25. But as I say, I'm not trying to lead you down any avenue. I'm literally just saying, trying to put into planning terms what I've heard from some of the members.
I think, thank you. That's a summary of our discussions. So I accept that. And I am happy to second Councillor Smedley's proposal, which we will. I don't see any other speakers, so we'll take that as it was the first proposal made. So all those in favour of refusing the application on the grounds that has just been summarised to us on regarding policies D18, D25, please show. That's 6 against. So that is carried. Thank you, members. It's been a really difficult afternoon, and I do thank officers because I know it's a difficult position to be in. Thank you. So that concludes all the applications. It's the appeals now. That would you like to?
Yes.
Thank you for providing the reports.
No, not sorry. So hopefully members will have seen some of these. I'll sort of go fairly quickly through these. I won't read word for word because you've had a long day. But just to say that we have had the first appeal is appeals received. We do have a sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, members, we haven't finished the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so we do have a new appeal which relates to the outline application for erection of one self-built dwelling at Penarron New Road, West Ling. Obviously, we'll bring the decision on that back to you at the appropriate time. In terms of the appeal decisions, we agreed previously that we would actually, rather than just me try to summarise them, we'd actually print the appeal decisions in the agenda, which I think hopefully members will think is a really positive step forward. At previous authorities, we didn't because we were providing paper copies, but now everything's electronic. There seems no problem with it. So the first one is an appeal at Redcliffe Street, Cheddar, was application for a change of use of land to a dog walking area. The inspector felt the appeal site was a suitable location in that it was for exercise of dogs in the countryside, but felt that there would be a detrimental impact on highway and pedestrian safety, and in particular because the dog walking area would have fairly substantial fencing around it, that would have a detrimental impact on the Mendip Hills National Landscape, so the former area of outstanding natural beauty, and that appeal was dismissed summarily. So that was in accordance with the officer's recommendation. The next appeal was allowed. This was land adjacent to Moore's Building in Bridgewater Road, Limpsham, and it was a change of use from a single traveller family plot to parking of vehicles in connection with a drainage company called Aquablast. This is an interesting one because you'll know we often come to you and you'll see decisions where we're saying we're unable to demonstrate that we meet our objectively assessed gypsy and traveller need. We got a bit of a telling off, I feel, from the inspector who said, we don't really know your latest need, do you? And I think that's a fair analysis because we haven't got that up-to-date gypsy and traveller position. Obviously, that is being worked through and will come through in the local plan, because the local plan for Whole of Somerset will seek to identify sufficient pictures to meet an objectively assessed need across Somerset. But in this instance, there was a very interesting point that the inspector said, well, the site was a gypsy and traveller site. It was voluntarily given up as a gypsy and traveller site. So that in its sense suggests that notwithstanding any position the council may be arguing that that particular site was not needed for gypsy and traveller accommodation anymore. It was slightly unusual to see that, but I understand the logic, and in that respect, the permission was granted, subject to closing one of the accesses, the southern access to the site, and to retain existing trees, landscaping along the eastern boundary of the site, which screen the site. Two more, sorry. First one was at Beech Tree Farm in Badgeworth Lane, Weir, and this was an application for an airport parking area. We probably don't get so many around here, maybe a few around Bristol Airport, where I come from in West Sussex. I'm very close to Gatwick, and these are tenant heavy, a big issue, massive sites. But the inspector felt that in this instance, allowing parking here, 24-hour parking, or nearest damn it, because of the operation of the airports and when flights go, felt that there would be unreasonable disturbance to neighbours, which would not be mitigated in terms of it would be unacceptable noise and disturbance from, for instance, lights, from car movements, etc. The inspector accepted there would be some economic benefits from diversification of rural business, but felt that those were certainly not outweigh the harm to neighbour amenity. I mean, interestingly, they were trying to argue that this is sustainable because what they do is they then run an electric vehicle from the site to the airport. So there's a short distance, but there's a short distance where people are parking their cars and then they're going electric vehicle. It's very difficult to quantify from where people are coming. You certainly couldn't monitor that. And the inspector gave that fairly short shrift in terms of it's impossible or uncertain to calculate in these calculations to assume that passengers would otherwise have travelled directly to the airport, but they may have taken a train or whatever. But I don't know if there's a train station at Bristol, so don't forgive me if I'm wrong. But the site is within a SAC, Mendip Bat Special Area of Conservation but the inspector felt that because they dismissed the appeal on the other grounds, they didn't need to do an assessment on the ecological impact, sorry. And then finally, which is an interesting one, Homefield, Little Island Road in Wedmore. Proposal was to change use from a C3, which is dwelling house, to a C2 use as a children's home with two children and then 2 adults looking after them. So it was proposed as a pure C2 use, and the inspector felt that it wasn't a suitable location for the use. And although acknowledged that there is already a house there, that the traffic movements and associated with a single dwelling likely to be less than if it was a children's home, said that it was contrary to our policies, which require care homes to be located where they're accessible to public transport, shops, local services, community facilities, and social networks for residents, carers, and their visitors. And so basically, the inspector felt this wasn't the right location, and that the proposals would conflict with the development plan as a whole. And then on that basis, the appeals. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bradford.
the first one that came out about West Lane. So what is, the issue with that one? And
West Lane, oh, so that's Pen Aaron, that's the new application, the new appeal. Let me just look it up and I can tell you what the refusal reasons were, if members just bear with me a second. I should have done that beforehand, of course, so I've been caught out. No, not at all. No, I should have looked at that before. It's, sorry, 3225. Sorry. $32.25. I'm sorry, members, I'm not.
you apologise, member.
No, not at all. No. Okay, so it's a shame Shanta's gone. That was one of hers. So the reasons for refusal there were the site was outside any settlement boundary in a countryside location. There was no justification because it's an unsustainable form of development. The siting of dwelling would extend the built form into the countryside, would not be sympathetic with the character of the area. It had not been satisfactorily demonstrated that the means of access and egress serving the proposed development would have adequate visibility displays, so there was a highway safety concern. And then there was a further one that the site was within 1 kilometre of designated habitat sites. And in the nutrient neutrality catchment of the Somerset Levels and Moors SPN Ramsar site. So they hadn't demonstrated that there would be no likely significant effect on the protected European site from phosphate inputs. So one that's less common here, but very common in the west of Somerset. So it was a fairly substantial grounds for refusal. We've already got an appeal, which is not surprising, knowing the agent who I will not do.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Members, I think that concludes the meeting. Thank you everyone for contribution and attending. Thank you.
That's all, that's it.